Well, now let's turn to Brian Schilling, who is building the ITLA model. Brian, welcome.
So last week I was kind of still carrying on a bit with the dry brushing and so forth. Just to finish that off, I just kind of showing the photo, I guess, on the right here, where I'd kind of dry brushed the stone coloring on there as well. I just wanted to show that, but this also starts to show some of the assembly stuff that for this kit. So for the most part, basically this is a kit that you're pretty much going to be gluing together with either a weld bond, or I use a yellow carpenter's glue. And you can use, if you can find applicators like this, where you can get a nice fine bead, that works well. But putting a little glue on a piece of tape and then using applicators such as these, because you can get a fine little bead going, or work just as well. So the good thing with these is the intent is to build as many of these wall panels while they're still flat. And you can pretty much do most things on there. Just depends on your comfort level when you're going to assemble, or how tricky some of the corners might be. This kit's pretty straightforward. But basically take the window panels and press them into the holes and push them right down. And what I've done is I will, because this has 3 pieces that'll fit into that hole, I will actually go and I don't know if it's going to be very apparent here, but in these little returns on the sides, I try to do a little bit of painting here. It's not really probably showing up too well, but I take a little bit of the brick color down into that side, and then I kind of dry brush with the grout, and I go very lightly, just dragging it straight out, so you kind of get those horizontal kind of feel of the brick returning into the space. It's not perfect, but in the tiny visual that you will see, it actually has the perfect effect for that. So basically I take an applicator, I do a little bit of glue on the sides, a little bit along the bottom, and a little bit on the top at the back edge. I push the window down into there. And then once I kind of got it secured in place, I will flip it over. And if I need to, I'll dab a little glue on the back and push it right on until I've got a comfortable amount in there to hold it in place, let that dry. And then I will come back, and the sill piece and the header piece, they just slide down into the holes as well. The reason that it's done in this particular methodology is so that when you actually see those sills and headers will actually stay proud of the face and actually give you that nice, real crisp detail. I tend to paint the tops of the headers so that when you get that little piece sticking out from the wall, you're not getting that unfinished look. So that will be what I will tend to do on those. The same thing happens with the doors and the frames. And then once I have those in place and I'm kind of happy with that, I will, on the back, I will go and apply the glazing, and I have a picture of that. So again, painting up a lot of this stuff while it's flat, a lot of this detail stuff. This is with the yellow kit that I have not quite assembled as far right now. And then I also start doing up a lot of the detail pieces so that they're kind of ready to go, and then I can test fit and see how they start looking. So one of the things that I like to do with these is on something like these steps, I'll start to distress them a little bit before painting, so that you'll get a little bit of the wear on the step or little chinks out of the concrete and stuff like that. I'll do the same thing on the sills and the headers, so it gives a little bit of the detail. And then you can even start installing your ducts and stuff like that while it's flat if you so wish. But I'll locate those and leave them off until I've actually got the building together. So I'll come back to this in a second. So basically that's your, for the most part, all your pieces ready to go. Now the ladder and the duct are not actually attached here. I was just mocking them up so that you could see what they look like. But I tried to do as much of the other stuff before I start putting together. So for me, it's a very simple process, and a lot of people go through different things of how they use fancy clips and stuff like that in order to square corners and everything. I typically, on buildings like these ones, I'll take the roof, and that's what you're kind of seeing down in the bottom here, is that's the actual roof panel, and that will keep that building square. Okay, the easiest, simplest thing if you've got nothing else type thing. Because these are kind of tongue and groove and fitting together, that it will help considerably on stuff like this. But that's one way that you're going to keep a corner nice and clean for that. And then I'll use the elastics on there. Now I don't assemble all four corners at once, but I will, in something like this, put them together because it helps hold the building together and keep that square. So otherwise you can get into using different types of clamps and so forth in order to square those corners. Okay. So that's the back side of what it looks like. So there's the skinny little vertical piece there. Those are part of the kit. And I start figuring out on the first corner how high I want that to be so that I can actually have it so that the roof will sit at what I consider the correct height, because those will be in all four corners. And then once I got that figured out, then I will follow suit with all the remaining quarters. So that's the back. You can also see here where I've just taken the glazing and I've just attached in big pieces type thing. I'm not cutting and going very fancy here. Attaching that, I typically just use something like this. I find that works just fine. I'm not an expert on what particular glue in that case to use, but this has always worked well for me. So as you can see also at the back, you can see a little bit of glue along edges and stuff like that where these were put in. But other than that, it's pretty flat. I don't big globs on the back or anything. I don't do stuff like that because then it allows me to get the glazing to sit nice and flush the backside of those windows and doors. So on the fronts, once I actually get those corners together, I'll start taking the panels that cover the corners and start working on those. Now I've painted them for the most part while they're flat, but once I get them on, I will put on the first one so it's flush with the return wall. I will get it painted on the inside edge so that when you see the side corner, you're not seeing a black of the laser cut, but I sand that down to get rid of the black, and then I paint up that edge just so that it's a little nicer. On the stone, not as big a deal. And then I take the other one and then I cover that over and I try to align that as perfectly as I can on the corner. If you do, however, have some gaps on there, then you can use anything such as like a polyfilla or whatever it is that you feel. I've used glue at times too to fill that up, and then when I touch up paint, basically that seam is almost perfect. Okay, so at this point, just going to go back to this. So in the kit, there are some paper decals that have come along with it. And I'm not fancy on my deco work either. I kind of call myself a guerrilla modeler. I'm not looking for, the longest, most elaborate way to do it. I'm looking for cheap and easy and get it done. But obviously I want it to look good too. And the results I've done, for the most part, I think have been very successful, or they've been a learning experience. So what I do with these decals is I will take a pencil on the back side of the page, and you can just see kind of the decal kind of highlighting through here. And I will just outline the area where that decal is. Then what I do is I just take a piece of sandpaper, and I will hold the decal so it stays flat, and I will just circular sand on the back side of that till I get that paper as thin as I can without it starting to tear or and so forth. The reason I'm doing that is so that when I actually glue this decal on, it's not big and globby and thick. It sits very nicely. I will also turn over. So at the bottom here, we ship everywhere. I've also sanded the top because I want this sign to be very faded and so forth. Once I do that, then I X-Acto it out to the size that I need. And basically I lay it with the front side down, and I use a glue stick. I hold the one end, I go away from me. I go the other end, and I go away from me until I've got a nice even coat on the back of it with a glue stick. Then I carefully position it on in the location I want. And if it's on an area where it is on a brick surface or whatever, where you've got some of that, if you take a nice smooth edge, and if you want to take a little bit of paper on top of it or whatever, if you start burnishing that, it will actually start kind of bringing that brick pattern through it, and it'll actually look like the sign's faded into the wall to some degree. So that's a quick and simple as what I do with those. If the signs are to be newer or brand new type thing, obviously you don't want to be doing too much of the burnishing. You don't want to be doing anything on the fronts, and then keep it as clean as possible, and then it'll look good. So right now, this sign kind of stands out because I have not done anything to weathering down that the stucco surface. I'll be getting to that, so I'm trying to fade that in a little bit when I get that. But the sign itself will already have some distress to it, which is my intention. So for the painting and so forth, if you'll notice on a lot of things, I'm not a very clean painter when it comes to some of this stuff. In fact, it actually looks downright atrocious in some cases, and I can see people going, "What the heck is this guy doing?" That's intentional. So if you look at that garage door, I want that garage door to look weathered up. I don't have to do much with this. If I went and got that so it was looking pristine, now I got to do more work on the back end in order to kind of bring it back down. The stucco surface, yeah, it's probably a little cleaner. It actually looks cleaner there than it does in front of me. So, I'll be using more the kind of the pen pastels or chalks or something like that at the end. But when it comes to like the wooden doors and the stones and the bricks and all that, I'm trying not to have to do a huge amount of that work at the end if possible. So that basically covers what I intend to talk to tonight. So next steps for me at this point will be basically just the finishing of doing the assembly of the four sides, putting the roof on, and then painting up the back side of where the roof goes to the parapet, and then start doing the detail work. So for instance, I've already done up the chimney, and I've also put a kind of a black layer at the bottom because that's all going to be, slopped with tar and stuff with that, and to go up the sides. So I already started doing some of that work up front so that it's already there. I'll have to attach still a couple things, and then to me, it'll be pretty close to being done with a little bit of weathering left to do. So that's all I have. I guess later, if there's any questions.